What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 201. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me again today are a pair of my teammates, Michael DeRosa, Coach Scott Parrott. Gentlemen, we previewed this day that happened yesterday, back on episode 200, which, by the way, I appreciate all the outpouring of support and love that I know we've seen via Twitter, and personally I got through text messages, DMs. That was really cool. People loved the surprise from Mike Rhodes over at Penn State. So I really appreciate the support. But now we're moving one step forward with 201, and we have a huge day of games to talk about that happened yesterday. Gentlemen, before we get into all that, how are we doing on this Sunday? I know I overslept a little bit trying to fight off this cold or whatever the hell I've had for last week. But how are you guys doing on this fine Sunday?
Doing great down here in Houston. 70 degrees. It's like a June morning. Walked about 4 miles this morning. Actually spoke to Coach Rhodes for about 30 minutes of that walk this morning. I passed along your appreciation, Josh, and thanked him again. And again, he was happy to do it. And anyway, I'm really excited about this episode. As much as 200 was fun, talking about what we talked about in 200 and 201 is going to be more fun because yesterday was an incredible day of basketball. Michael, what do you think?
I mean, yesterday was an awesome day of basketball. The last non-conference slate just always feels like it's the best to me. Just like every year, it's always the best. And but my health today will depend on how much the Commanders win by. I need them to smoke the Saints, so they're going to smoke the Saints.
Well, you got one yesterday. You got your Hoyas. We'll get to that in a minute. But now I got to root for the Commanders. You got a lot of pressure on me, Mike.
Before we're all said and done, you'll learn this, Coach. He is a DMV guy, right?
Yeah.
Is that what the metro area is? So he loves his Hoyas and his Commanders, and I'm cool with it because they don't have any direct rivalries with any of my teams. It's not like the Nationals are rivals with Cincinnati Reds, or it's not like the Commanders are rivals with the Packers. So, or especially Georgetown and Kentucky or whatever. So I'm cool with it. Like, I'll root for his teams because we're not direct rivals. So it makes me feel better.
Well, I have a good friend who's a huge Commanders fan too. So the guy in Hershey, PA right now, and he's a follower of the show too, by the way. He I don't know if he's on today or not, but Craig Capelli's a good friend. He's a huge Commander fan. He was down at the game, was it last week or 2 weeks ago when they were home? He goes every year, so I know he loves them too.
Well, that's awesome, man. You know what? I was going to bring up the NCAA tournament thing because obviously we didn't have time and it wasn't worth our time on Thursday, but I just want to bring it up again. I know we talked about this, 3, 4, 5 episodes ago when the president, Charlie Baker, had mentioned something on the Dan Patrick show of like, yeah, we're looking into it. It's probably inevitable. And then again, this last week, it comes out that the exact quote is he's bullish on the idea of expanding the tournament. I don't get why. Like, I get it, money, and you see people that are trying to save face that these commentators on ESPN and Fox are like, well, I could see why because we've moved up since last time the tournament expanded in the 64 in 1985. They only had 320 teams. Now we're over 364. So yeah, we can add a couple more spots. But again, I'll go back to it. It's the greatest tournament in all of sports, the greatest, and it's already hard enough at 68 that we're getting some mediocre teams getting in this tournament. Now, if we add 4 to 8 spots, it's just going to water it down with teams who losing records that don't deserve it, all from power conferences. And I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. I hate it. I hate it, guys. Yeah. I really hate it, but it seems like now more so than ever. Like, to use the term bullish means no matter what his advisors tell him and people within the sport who actually tell him, he sees dollar signs and we're going to go to 72 or 76 within the next year or two.
We agree. I mean, we agree on the whole, don't water down the product. I think they got away with it going to 68. Everybody seems to have bought it enough. I think if you keep squeezing it more and more, I agree with you. And you're right. It's going to be all power conference teams, and there's going to be, eight teams or at least or 10 from every power conference. And there's got to be some incentive or some reward for having a good year, not having a mediocre year and getting rewarded.
Yeah. Agreed completely. It feels inevitable. Like they're just going to eventually grandfather it in that, like, if we had another 2 games to the first 4, it's not going to kill me, but What kills me is the idea of them trying to go to 96 in the future. That would break me. Like, that would just break me. So I really hope they don't do that in my lifetime. But yeah, I don't know. The 72 feels inevitable at some point. That I'm either like, it's just one of those things, we get with it or we don't. And we can watch, I don't know, a mediocre Big Ten team play a mediocre ACC team for the right to lose in the second round of St. Mary's.
Yeah, it's insane. And yeah, I'm with you. I think eventually before we leave this earth, they're going to get up to 96 and it's going to be like, yay, let's watch. And it won't even be from Dayton, probably. They'll be like, well, we got to play these extra rounds in Fargo, North Dakota, where we can watch Florida A&M against Grambling State or somebody.
They'll do home sites for money.
Oh, that's true. That is a good point. Yeah.
Actually, home sites for a home tournament game, that could be pretty fun.
That got Michael fired up.
That if they make it to 72, but they have 2 games at home sites, that could be the way to like really get me in. Not really get me in, but like get me like intrigued.
Well, it depends though. If you've got 2 teams that historically just do not care, like you've got like a fraction of the fan base, and you have this NCAA tournament game that has all these stakes to them, and the building's a quarter full. Is that really that exciting?
No, not at all. But it would feel like so much more lame because like the whole pitch is home site and no one's there. But on the other side, if one of those teams is Indiana, like if Indiana this year made it to the tournament and had a home site, that would be fun.
That's true.
That's true. I think more often than not, your pitch would be exactly what happens. But like on like the 5% chance it's a really fun game, it could get me.
Right. No, I get that. I hate the idea of it, guys. I really, really hate it. But unfortunately, we're not in control, and people who only see dollar signs are in control of things these days. So it is what it is.
I think everything college basketball should be the commissioner of the NCAA.
Brother, if we were the commissioner, there would be a lot of people that would be upset because the way we would do stuff. But I like that idea. Hey, listen. DeRosa and I are not far from the NCAA headquarters up in Indy. We are not far at all. So it's not like it's that big of a commute for us. So all I'm saying, let's get into the action. I mean, that's what everybody's here for. We had the best single day of college hoops. We talked about it on Thursday. We had the best single day of college hoops yesterday that we may see all year. And that's including some of these tournament days. Depending on how some of the matchups shake up. I'm talking about incredible games from top to bottom. And I think we only have to start with the number 1 team in the AP and the ECB top 25, and that's Tennessee. They go on the road. They play a very good Illinois team in Champaign, a tough building to go in there and get a win in. And they do exactly that. They hit a game winner at the buzzer to take down Illinois and avoid, I wouldn't say the curse of being number 1, but kind of avoid that initial trap of being number 1 that you see a lot of times over the last few years. Team gets number 1, their next game, they drop it. So, and that's an incredible win. We talked about previewing this back on episode 200 about, I actually picked Illinois to win this game. I thought Illinois offensively could do stuff that really threw Tennessee off with Tomislav Ivicic, Will Riley, and etc. And Tennessee, man, I'll fully admit it. DeRosa, you know I've been saying this for a couple weeks now about, I know Tennessee's good. I don't know how good they actually are. And that if they prove it to me in a game like this, and I'll come on and admit it, I'll admit it. This Tennessee team is really damn good. They are really damn good. They're defensive-minded as always. Rick Barnes, I don't think can go a year without his teams being top 5 defensively. But they can score the ball now. I mean, you look at what Zakai Ziegler has been able to do so far this year. Look at Chaz Lanier. They've got dudes, and then Jordan Gainey has the game of his life in the second half and with the game winner. So, Coach, I'll come to you first. I can't remember. I think you went Illinois with me, if I remember right. So when you watch this game, Tennessee hits one at the buzzer, but the fact that they were in it and pulled it out, that says a lot about the number 1 team.
Well, yeah, lot to talk about here. A lot stands out. First of all, I think Ziegler played 6 minutes the second half.
Yeah, he got in foul trouble.
Yeah, 6. I think he played 6. Lanier did not play great. And Gainey, I mean, phenomenal. And then the play that Barnes had, and then the post-game press conference where he explained the play from Morgan Wooten, right? DMV guy.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that post
No, I
game?
didn't.
I believe it was a play from 40-something years ago that Morgan – yeah, it was great by Rick Barnes. Just really cool for him to kind of, talk about that. And then the subtlety of the play was the little top of the key butt screen that has become a thing now in college basketball, where he didn't quite screen him, but it's there, and it makes the defender just a little nervous.
Just a little brush screen, yeah.
That's it. And the kid got downhill and made a great shot, and what a great game, man. Tennessee, hell of a win.
DeRosa, on those final possessions like that, like Gainey, Coach talked about and hit it perfectly with the little butt brush screen there, and it kind of slowed Gainey's defender up just a little bit. And the thing that I always confused by is Illinois, or whoever it may be in these defending situations, your first priority always is to stop the basketball.
Yep.
And you had a couple Illinois dudes kind of like olay him to the rim and try to side shot block him, right? They tried to come from the side and block a shot, as opposed to wall off the ball. It drives me insane. You were taught at a young age, elementary school, that the first priority on defense is to stop the ball. Put your body in front of the ball in the basket, and then make the ball handler make a decision. Nobody did that for Illinois. They kind of guided him to the rim, and he gets up a shot and beats them. So if I'm Illinois, I got to get in front of the ball, man.
I think the butt screeners, man. I'm sorry, Michael. You can talk on this in a second.
Please.
But to me, it was the guy who's the guy who's guarding the guy who set the butt screen. He's got to be plugging the hole there, because it's hard for the wing guy to do it or the corner guy to do it there, Josh. Just because if you leave it, you're afraid you can give up an open shot. That guy had a chance to plug that hole, and I don't think he made much of or wasn't aware of kind of which way he was going to go, maybe, and it kind of froze him.
Well, I agree with that, DeRosa. Like, I completely agree. Like, and that's something else too. When it drives me insane as well. I know I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but like when your guy that you're guarding is setting a screen on your teammate and you don't call it out and you don't step up to try to fill the hole, those are how you lose basketball games, and it's exactly what happened to Illinois last night.
Yeah, and I've just watched the playback a couple times. I mean, you guys have hit all the notes I would have hit on the play. Frankly, did it better than I would have. One thing I want to note, though, and it's kind of like one of the reasons I'm not super high on Illinois long-term, is that the guy's playing defense in this spot. It's Jekučionis is guarding the ball, and then it's Tomislav Ivisic inside. Illinois is a really young team. Ivisic is a sophomore, but it's his first year in America. And Jekučionis, who is excellent, by the way, freshman. Yeah, but I want to hit on Jekučionis. So you guys hit that, but Illinois is really young. So like it makes sense that they're going to make some of those mistakes that just down the line for like more Illinois talk. But
I think it's a great point.
Yeah, and just looking at, I mean, Jekučionis, he was awesome. 22 points, 10 of 14 from the line. He was able to get to the free throw line and make plays. But the one thing Tennessee was able to do that I don't know if many teams will be able to, because I think Jekučionis is going to be the NBA next year. Like, I think he's that good. 7 turnovers. They made him make decisions, and they made him make bad decisions. I don't know if you guys were watching the game. The inbounds pass late, where he threw this really, really lazy pass. I don't know if he was
about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was him.
No, he threw it. It was side out of bounds, tie game. Illinois has a chance to take the lead, and it was right over there by not Brad Burnell. I'm losing this.
Underwood.
Illinois. Thank you, Brad Underwood. It was right by him, and I think he even came out of a timeout, right? Like
it was a
ball timeout. Yeah. And he just lazily threw it, and it was Igor Milicic that stole it, went the other way, and put Tennessee up with like 90 seconds to go.
Yeah,
awful.
Oh, I mean that was the moment for me where I was just pulling my hair out, like, oh my god, how did that happen? Like, I mean, you mentioned it was an ATO. They're just trying to get the ball here to run something, and it's just this lazy pass. And
so
Milicic,
think about how you felt. Think about how Coach Underwood felt.
Oh yeah,
that's how we felt. The same way. I mean, it just drives. You can't imagine how those things. And you go back and watch it on tape as a coach, and it just drives you crazy. That's why coaching is so much fun.
Sorry, DeRosa. I'll add this one point. And I know Jimmy Dykes can drive people nuts with he gets on a saying or two, and he'll repeat it 100 times throughout the broadcast. I love Jimmy Dykes. And I know when he's seen this highlight, he was losing his mind, because he says it all the time. Go to Kentucky Gonzaga last week. He goes, I know this is underrated, but Kentucky just has to get the ball in first. We're worried about them getting fouled and all these plays. If they just got to get the ball in, because that's an underrated part. I know he watched that play last night. He's like, see, I told you, just get the ball in, because it's hard to do it. So go ahead.
The common fan has no idea how hard it is late in the game to get the ball in bounds.
Even go ahead.
Because look, there's guys are holding, guys are in getting in ways because they know people don't want to make too many risky passes. You got to have a really smart inbounder. You got to make sure you have space. That's the other thing that people sometimes things get crowded and makes it really hard for the inbounder. He gets nervous. You've got to create space to give a guy an opportunity to get a pass. It's hard. It's a challenge. It sounds easy. How can you get the ball in bounds? I'll tell you, it can be really hard.
100%. And even late game in the Georgetown game, Epps makes a play to get the ball, and then he runs to the corner, and then he gets space, but he just kind of sits there waiting to be fouled.
Yeah.
And Syracuse guys just go over and they're like, no, we're just going to trap here. Yep. And you can see Ed Cooley running down the floor calling a timeout.
Yeah. Well, side out of bounds, I always found playing and coaching being the most difficult inbound ones because especially when you're right there by half court. If you throw it by half court, you're right there in coffin corner and you're getting trapped. If you throw it the opposite way, try to skip past, that's easy to be intercepted and go. But I just didn't like you said, DeRosa, I didn't like the inbounds pass, how lazy it was from Yakuchonis, because he kind of just you could see it in his form. You could see where he's kind of like that, as opposed to putting some snap on it. And great play by Milicic. I mean, to jump that route for as big as he is and go coast to coast and put it home, I mean, that's a big play. A couple things.
That was Milicic's second bucket of the game, too. He was 2 of 13 from the field. That was his second bucket.
Wow. And that's a big one to have.
Yeah.
It's a big one to have. That's winning basketball. And Tennessee, man, we talk a lot about their defense, but I don't sometimes think we talk about it enough. We talked coming into this game about Illinois, what they could do offensively. They limited the Illini to 4 of 23 from 3. And that's the same way with Illinois with some of these other teams that play high octane, fast up and down tempo is if they don't hit their 3 ball, how do they score? How do they go and get a bucket? 4 of 23 is obviously probably not what Brad Underwood hoped that the percentage would be, 17%. But Tennessee just takes your airspace away. We talk about it a lot of times with other teams, especially younger teams. They look like they're closely guarded to somebody, but they still give shooters just enough space to get their shot off. Tennessee is a no airspace. You got to put the ball on the ground and try to blow by me defense. And, it frustrates a lot of teams. To beat Tennessee, you have to, I think, beat them in transition. You have to find ways to get easy ones. You have to hope that they're missing and then keep them off the offensive glass. And then you got to hit threes. You can't beat Tennessee if you don't hit from the outside. And Illinois going 4 of 23, just no chance they were winning that game.
I got a little Milicic story for you. So 2 things. One, when he was leaving Virginia, we were in deep talks. I mean, Tony Bennett and I had talked. He thought it was a great spot for us at Rice, the way we played, how we'd use him. We thought we had a really good chance of getting him, and Rice would not admit him.
Oh.
So then Coach Sanchez, and he would tell you this story, Coach Sanchez initially wasn't high on him, circled back, and then decided, I think he can really help us. And then they took him at Charlotte, and now he's, stealing and dunking at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And by the way, we cut it to 2 last year at Charlotte, fouled him with under 10 seconds. He stood there and made both 1-1 to ice the game.
That's rough, Coach.
He got me twice.
Those are the ones you wish that you're like,
I just wish he'd been on my team and we could have got him into school.
Yeah. That's brutal. Who knew Rice was trying to pull a Michigan and deny players that are good,
Well, Tony Bennett said to me, Scott, if you can't get a UVA transfer in, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
And I still have the text from Tony. I'm like, well, that's just the life. It's what we do with. It's what we deal with.
That's crazy, man. Putting a bow on this one, though. I mean, Jordan Gainey, you guys both talked about Chaz Lanier, foul trouble, fouls out. Zakai Ziegler fouls out. If you would have told anybody before the game that those 2 players foul out and Tennessee still wins this game, thought there's no chance in hell.
No.
But they got great production from their super senior sub, Jordan Gainey, off the bench. 23 points, made 3 of 6 from the 3-point line, solid defensively. This dude in my SEC previews, I mentioned him as being kind of a silent weapon for Tennessee. I love the way he kind of turned it on in the back half of the year last year as a scoring threat alongside Dalton Connect and Zakai Ziegler. He's starting to show this year what kind of threat he really can. Because at 6'4", there's guards who are as big or bigger than him, and there's definitely bigs when he gets switched on to him that are bigger. But his fight, he is, and again, I keep thinking of Jimmy Dykes when I talk about this, but he will not be denied to a spot he wants to go. If he wants to put his head down and get to the 15-foot mark around the right elbow and get a jump shot off, you're not going to stop him. He's strong, he's wiry, he's athletic, and he's tough. And man, what a weapon he is for Tennessee right now.
How about I can't wait for Tennessee versus Florida and those guards. How about Tennessee versus Alabama and their guards? I mean, like we've talked about it, and we will continue. The SEC is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
just loaded. I mean, it's unreal.
Talent everywhere.
Yep, and just think we're only like 2 weeks away from conference play beginning.
Did I hear somewhere they had won 68 straight games or something?
Who, the SEC?
Yes.
That sounds right. I don't know it for a fact, but that sounds right.
64. It was some crazy number, fellas. Like 60 plus straight games.
It sounds right, DeRosa. I don't know it for a fact, but it sounds right.
Just there was a tweet from T3 Bracketology, one of the bracketology dorks. We're all dorks in college basketball space. I don't mean that like as a negative thing. I mean that endearingly. Record versus Q1 teams among like the top 5 leagues. The SEC is 60%. That's great. Big 10, 28%. Big 12, 30%. Big East, 34%. ACC, 20%. I mean, it just kind of shows you the SEC are winning these huge games. It's SEC definitive gap. Everybody else.
Did you see Norlander's tweet today?
No, I didn't.
He predicted. He said kind of like you heard it here. Whatever 12 teams from the SEC will make it. Kind of like we talked about last week, Josh.
Yeah.
He put it out there. He called it on, like he kind of said on Twitter that I'm saying 12 teams are going to make it.
Well, I mean, I think so. And we talked about this as well, that, yeah, they'll start beating each other in conference play, but they're all going to be Q1 wins at this point. So it's not really going to hurt your resume.
Yeah, Georgia had another good win yesterday, didn't they?
They beat Grand Canyon. Beat Grand Canyon. I mean, this league, man, this league is unreal. Unreal. Let's move on and talk about the game that happened in the Garden last night. We spent some time previewing this, and that was number 9 Gonzaga against number 22 UConn, who had just got back in the polls. Connecticut, we talked about the home court advantage in Madison Square Garden. It showed up through the TV, loud and proud. Husky fans stuck over the Garden. And Connecticut, whatever their issues were in Maui, they figured them out now, Coach. Defensively, they're figured out. I mean, they held Gonzaga to 71 points. You're talking about a top 5 offense that historically is up and down and transition and dunks and playing fast. They held Gonzaga to 71 points in Madison Square Garden. I would think that Hurley started to figure out this defensive thing.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? I mean, that's the difference. What did Texas score at home the other night? 65?
Yeah.
I was there. Not many.
Yeah.
And whatever percentage they got of them in the last 5 minutes and down by 15 and 18. So, again, they were good that night. They were good defensively against Baylor. They were really good against Gonzaga. So that's the difference. I also think Hawaii is just too far from Connecticut, New Jersey. Danny needs to stay on the East Coast. Forget he's not a surfer guy anyway. Maui didn't happen. UConn's fine.
You're telling me, hold on. You're telling me Danny doesn't like the serene surroundings of Hawaii. He's not a meditation guy. That's what you're telling me.
Pretty sure that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think he would prefer like one of those old school like 1980s Boston pubs where everybody's fighting. I think that's what he'd enjoy.
In the old Boston Garden where there was no air conditioning and no heat. No, he's done a phenomenal job again of kind of circling the wagons, calming everybody down, knowing where they got to get better at, and then getting better at that. And that's the defensive end of the floor. Tons of credit to Danny and his staff. And just, the young kid was incredible. Liam was, I told you, live, I thought he was terrific against Texas, even though the numbers weren't great. Last night, the numbers were great, and he was terrific.
I mean, DeRosa, I hate to keep doing this to our IU people, but they had Liam McNeely committed for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, he was bound to be a Hoosier until I think it was like March, April of this last year, and he decommitted and went to UConn. I mean, he's phenomenal. 6'7", plays. He's a wing, but he can play kind of a guard role as well. Being that big, he can switch off and comfortably defend some of these bigs he has to defend against. And then he's always been a scoring threat. He didn't shoot the 3 particularly well last night, but he got it. He found himself going to the rim, making some tough buckets, man. Very physical for a freshman. 26 points to lead the way, all scorers last night. I thought I thought they were awesome. Graham Ike only played 12 minutes. Him and Nolan Hickman, who I thought would have such a huge impact in this game. but they both only had 12 minutes apiece.
Yeah, and I think you guys hit on the defensive note for UConn. They've just found the answer on that end, at least an answer on that end. And you're playing a really good Gonzaga team, and you did enough to limit Ryan Nembhard from getting going too much. Khalif Battle had a really good game, but aside from that, you kind of shut down everybody. And Graham Ike got in foul trouble in particular, which I think completely changed this game because it allowed. I mean, Terrace Reed was excellent, but I think another thing UConn did was they found that second offensive alpha. Aside from Karaban, they needed someone else to be that guy. It wasn't Diarra. Solo Ball is great in his role, but he's a role player. I believe this was his first game not having double-digit points on the season. I'd have to double-check that, but I'm fairly confident in that. But they found that guy in Liam McNeely. He's a freshman, so it makes sense. It took him a little bit of time to get going. As Coach mentioned, he's really hit his stride. The numbers were excellent in this game. 26 points, 8 boards, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, 7 of 13 from the field. Whenever UConn needed a big play, it was McNeely, the guy that was tasked with doing it. He was excellent, and I think once he really gets going, he's going to be proved to be one of the best freshmen in the country and get his name heard in June.
I want to give a shout out to Jalen Stewart. I thought there was possessions last night. He had a couple really tough buckets, like a couple circus shots, and he ended up contributing 10 off the bench in 19 minutes. That's, again, kind of the recipe to success. You get your top star or two to really kind of show out, and then you get some of your role players to step up in these big games. And I thought Jalen Stewart deserved a lot of credit for his production off the bench last night. Aiden Mahaney, 8 minutes. Like, he got his minutes cut real big in this game, 2 points. I'm officially worried about this kid because coming in from St. Mary's, highly touted transfer, was a big-time scorer. We all know him from his first couple years over there at St. Mary's. He's struggling right now to fit into this UConn team, fit into some of these high major games. Do you foresee an opportunity as the season progresses for him to finally get going and showing the real him? Or is it just going to be one of these deals that, man, his minutes are going to be limited now and whatever happens with him?
I told you guys I was worried about him in Texas. I watched it very closely. So I was not surprised at this. One of the things I pointed out about the game was how many minutes would he play? Would it be an under 10 or closer to 20? And so I'm not surprised at what happened. Look, he'll get his opportunity again, but Danny's going to challenge him. Like, this kid's got to prove himself. You know, he's going to have to work his butt off, earn the trust back of this coaching staff, and then when he gets his opportunity, play loose and aggressive. Again, Texas, he was way too tight and not confident. And so now when your minutes go down, you can't get tighter. Like, you got to fight like crazy. And I think Danny, that's what he wants to see from this kid. Is he going to come out swinging and fight through this because we need you? And I think that's the message Danny's given to him for sure, because they do need him. And hopefully the kid will get his confidence back, get his minutes back up to around 20 because he can help this team.
Another thing with Mahaney, real quick, Josh, is when he was at St. Mary's, one thing he really struggled with, and granted, I kind of thought it was like because just how St. Mary's played, but he really struggled with pressure. You were able to bully him off spots really easily. And the Big East is a much more physical league than the WCC. And he would struggle in the games, like even in some of the tournament games where they weren't really able to get going, like St. Mary's, or in the second round of the tournament, they were getting like kind of smoked. They'd win the first round game because they're able to execute their stuff. Then they play a team that's at their level, and those teams can just kind of push them around. That's kind of what happened in this spot. That's kind of what's happening to me, to Aiden Mahaney this year. Like, Memphis was really able to push him around. I thought that was like kind of like a spot where it's like, okay, there's a problem here. And even in their first exhibition game, he didn't start. So I am kind of concerned for Aiden Mahaney long term. I just don't think he's going to make a huge impact on this UConn team, especially because, and I texted you all about this, the 2 through 4 groups on UConn. We're looking obviously at the starting lineup between Ball, McNeely, Karaban, but off the bench, Stewart and Ross, both just really, really solid players. And those guys are really impacting the game that they don't need Aiden Mahaney.
It's true. And that kind of plays off what I was going to ask Coach. Coach, you've been around this a long time, and I do think there is some of this factoring in that he's adjusting to, but I do want to ask you, when he was at St. Mary's, he was the guy. Like, if they needed a shot, the ball was in his hand late in the shot clock, he was going off and averaging 19, 20 points a game. He'd have the occasional 30-point game or whatever. But now at UConn, he's got great players around him. The ball's not in his hands. And do you think that's affecting him some too, is that he's so used to having kind of the offense revolve around him? Now he's just a piece of the offense.
Yeah, and I think this, and I think this has kind of evolved to this point too, right? I mean, Yeah, I think coming in, he knew what he was joining, back-to-back national champs, going to be on a bigger stage, be seen, blah, 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 better competition, whatever. And that's no disrespect to St. Mary's. They're awesome. But that's obviously what he was looking to do. And now he's facing, a situation. You're right. He has to adjust his role. He has to find where he fits. But again, like knowing Danny, and you guys know from the outside, I know him a little bit as a friend. And look, he wants to see you fight out of this. I mean, it is what it is. We're in this situation now. What are you going to do, Aiden, to earn my trust back, to get you back on this floor? And I'm anxious to see too the next game how he does. But yeah, I think that's a factor, Josh. It always is when you come into something where it's a different role than what you're used to, especially if you are the man. It's definitely going to affect kind of how you play, because you want to fit in, right? You want to be a good teammate. You want to be. But now he's kind of in between, right? Do I be aggressive, or do I just continue to look to get guys involved? And he's in between right now. He's struggling.
And last couple things I want to talk about Gonzaga. We know UConn's finally looks like they figured it out. Gonzaga yet again. That's 2 losses in a row. You can't fault them because it's to Kentucky and Connecticut, so you can't fault them. But a couple things stand out yet again for Gonzaga. One, Ryan Nembhard played 40 minutes. They're to the point they can't take Nembhard off the floor. And I think long-term, that's going to really hurt them. The dude can't be playing 38, 39, 40 minutes per game again. He can't. It's not going to work long time. Caleb Fattle continues to be really good for them. Led them in scoring 21. But the other thing the other two I want to touch on real quick. We talked about it with Kentucky last week. It happened again last night. 6 of 16 from the three-point line. Now, 37.5% is good. Like, you'll take that. But only getting off 16, only making 6, that's not historic Gonzaga. Like, they were always a really good three-point shooting team. This team's struggling to hit from beyond the arc. And the other thing I want to touch on, DeRosa, you mentioned about EK being in foul trouble. This team, in bigger games, now, WCC, they should be fine. But in the tournament, they cannot survive with Graham Ike being off the floor and Braden Huff being their primary 5 guy for long stretches. If Braden Huff has to play 28 minutes at the center spot, they're not winning a lot of big-time games.
Yeah, and I think the point of Nembhard, that's definitely going to be a worry come tournament time, but I don't think there are a couple WCT teams that can really push him, but for the most part, because you're able to play a San Diego, a team that you're just more talented than, no disrespect to San Diego, but Gonzaga is just better than them. That they can kind of get away with that and run some of the deep bench. But yeah, come tournament time, absolutely, that's a concern. And yeah, this team is so dependent on Nembhard Ike battle that if one of those 3 isn't really on, there's some concerns. But I believe last year I was picking against Gonzaga to make the Sweet 16, and they've made the Sweet 16 the last 12 years. So I don't know if I'm going to do that again. I'm not going to lie.
I don't advise that.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. And I tend to be this kind of truth, whatever say, or coach, whatever on this show. But what was it, Kentucky? Would they lose by?
They lost. Oh my God, what was it? By
very
3, 4, 3, 2, or something like that. Yeah.
And a big comeback by Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And they just flew cross country, the longest trip you can possibly make, and took UConn to the wire in Madison Square Garden.
No, you're right. You're right. I see where you're going. Like, you're right.
They're going to be fine. They're going to be a Sweet 16, Elite 8 contender, no question in my mind. And if they get the right matchups, maybe make a run, to the Final Four. So anyway, this makes these games great, and helps Coach View figure out exactly kind of what it looks like, right? Yeah. What we're going to need to do, just like Danny had to from Hawaii. What do we need to do here to get this fixed? And these guys are just incredible coaches, and they'll get them fixed.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's a fair point. Let's move on. Number 18, Texas A&M 70. Number 10, Purdue 66 in Indianapolis. I didn't think, I knew A&M had a chance. I know how good A&M is, but Purdue doesn't lose a whole lot in Indianapolis. They just don't. And A&M really controlled this game, if we're being honest. Like, they were up 12 at one point with under 5 minutes to go in the second half. And I felt like they controlled this game. It was back and forth, kind of nip and tuck for a while there. But once A&M kind of got their foothold in the game and got out front, they relied on that physical defense. They relied on their big-time players. Wade Taylor, 15. Zurich Phelps, 16. Pharrell Payne off the bench was 16. And they just kind of beat Purdue up, if we're being honest. Very physical. 14 offensive rebounds. They do it as well as anybody in the country, and Purdue just couldn't hang with them. What a win for A&M. Back to the SEC point, another just massive win for the conference. But Coach A&M, really, really good. I think I said this. This is Buzz Williams' best team I think he's ever had. Like, you go back to his Marquette and Virginia Tech days. This team's the most talented, that fits his personality of what he wants his teams to be identity-wise. This team's really good. They're going to be a threat, not only in the SEC, but with the right matchups, they can make a run the NCAA tournament. And the other thing, this is the type of win, and they've got a couple of them now, that in the last 2-3 years in the non-con that they would not have had heading in the SEC play. So they had to try to run the table and make a good league for them to make the NCAA tournament. They've got these Q1As now under the resume heading in SEC play. This is an incredible win. I don't care if it says neutral. To me, this is like Kentucky, Gonzaga, and some of these others. This is a true road game. Don't give me that neutral shit.
Yeah, and it's one of my points I'm going to make here. Look at this yesterday, and we'll talk about more of these games. But Memphis won at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
That A&M wins basically at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA wins at Arizona.
Yep. Right.
Georgetown wins at Syracuse. Tennessee wins at Illinois. Amazing. The road teams yesterday in some of these games, all the wins they got. And back to the A&M, the stat that stuck out for me, Josh, is Wade Taylor had 5 steals.
Yeah, I know. He's a pest. He's so underrated.
This against Braden Smith, fellas. This isn't against, some guy from wherever. I mean, 5 steals.
He's so underrated defensively because everybody focuses on when he gets on the heater, he could put up 15 in a row. But defensively, again, you can't play for Buzz Williams the same way you can't play for Rick Barnes if you don't defend. And Wade Taylor's a sneaky good defender. 5 steals in a game like that against who he was matched up against is remarkable, Michael. I mean, and then Zerk Phelps, the SMU transfer, coming in 16 points, tied the leading the way, and Pharrell Payne coming in off the bench, giving them 16. I like A&M's depth. They play a lot of guys. They play like 10 dudes, and they all contribute at some form or fashion. Like anytime you bring in Manny or Basicki off the bench in a game like this, you've got a pretty good squad.
Yeah, with A&M, last year was the year we hyped them quite a bit. Like, yeah, they were going to be a top 15 team, whatever, and they were good, but they were not like at that level. I think this is the year. I think we were a year too early. They look excellent, and the way they were able to, I mean, they just completely took Purdue at everything. You guys mentioned it with the pressure. There was one play where Braden Smith got to get to a spot. It was off a ball screen, and then he went to throw a pass to the corner, and because it was pressured so much, that thing went 4 rows deep. Like, it was completely like long shot. He was off his game. They took him off his rhythm. And just looking at Braden Smith's box score from the season long, aside from the first game where he had 6 turnovers, take the first game out, game 1, stuff happens. Braden Smith had not had a game with more than 3 turnovers all season. They took him out of his rhythm, and they made this game play the way A&M wants to. And where I don't think A&M's going to shoot 40% from 3 in most games this season, I just don't see that happening. They did yesterday, and they were just excellent. And they completely took that Purdue crowd out of the game because, as you guys mentioned, this was basically a road game. And I'll tell you right now, in the game that happened after this one, that crowd was silent. It was all Purdue fans were there. Purdue fans left after the game. You could hear a pin drop in the place. Just A&M is excellent. They pressure the ball well. They're annoying defensively. They get up in you. They make it tough to play. And on the rebounding battle too, when A&M would miss a shot, Purdue had 15 defensive rebounds. A&M had 14 offensive rebounds. So they got basically 50% of their own misses too. They just completely dominated this game the way Texas A&M wants to play a game. That's a statement.
Well, Coach, you know what I'm talking about here as well. There's a lot of times, like when you're playing, like when I was in high school, if we played somebody that was a better team than us or that was fast in transition, like our coach would be like, all right, 3 to the boards, 2 back to try to at least have people back defensively, right? A&M just says, screw it, all 5 guys to the glass. Guards, bigs, wings, everybody to the glass. And that's why they're so dominant offensive rebounding. And you really, if you want to beat A&M, like we talked about how you want to beat Tennessee, if you want to beat A&M, you put them in transition and you keep them off the glass. Yeah. That's the 2 ways to try to beat them. If not, if you let them make it a half-court slugfest, allow them to play their half-court defense like Michael was talking about where they're up in you, and you don't keep them off the offensive glass, you have no shot at beating Buzz Williams' team this year.
So it makes me. I just keep looking ahead to these SEC matchups. Like, when does A&M play Auburn? I can't wait for that game. I mean, there's just so many cool matchups. And you're right, Buzz has a really good team. They fit his style and personality. Michael, I agree. I think this year they can make a run. So and they have a stud in Wade Taylor. So those are the ingredients you kind of need. He has it this year, and we'll see how far he can go with it.
So here's A&M. First of all, their last 6 games, they went 5-1. They lost to Oregon, beat Creighton, Rutgers, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, and Purdue. That's a pretty good 5-game win streak, fellas. That is pretty damn good 5-game win streak. The last 2 come in against teams in the top 30 in KenPom. They've got Houston Christian, Abilene Christian as their next 2. Then SEC play begins on January 4th. Their first 4 SEC games: home against Texas, away Oklahoma, home against Alabama, away to Kentucky. Welcome to the SEC this year, gentlemen. I mean, this is nuts conference, man. Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky is your first 4 to open the conference play.
You can pick any team and read their schedule. It's going to be the same.
I know. Yeah. It's nuts. It's
that might be one of the easier stretches teams have.
I know. It's crazy, but terrific win for Texas A&M. Anything on Purdue? I mean, to me, it's clear. Like, obviously, Braden Smith was fine in this game. Outside the turnovers, 15 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, 4 steals on his own right. I worry about Purdue long term if they can't get production out of, Trey Kaufman pitched an 11 and 4. Not great if you're trying to win a game like this. But, man, they need somebody else, another big, to step up, or they just need to go 4 guards. But they need somebody else. We know
that injury hurts them.
Oh, it killed them. Yeah,
Michael brought that up a couple weeks ago. It really hurts them.
It kills them. So when you look at Purdue, 8-3, still good team. Obviously, they got an All-American point guard. But DeRosa, when you look at Purdue, any concerns moving forward? Because the Big Ten this year is better than what it's been in the last few years.
I mean, I kind of think the Big Ten, there's just so many teams that are just like, nobody great, but so many teams that are just good. And Purdue kind of fits into that. Like, Oregon, I don't think is a great team. I really like Oregon, but I think they're just really good. Like, they're a team in that like 10, 15, whatever range. And I just kind of think so many Big Ten teams fit into that like 15th to like 45th best teams in the country. And I think Purdue is one of those teams that, I don't know, I think they'll be fine in Big Ten play. And I just think matchups are really concerned with them. The big matchup angle for them.
This goes back to earlier in the show. CR says, well, you can see it on the screen if you're watching along live.
That's my friend I was talking about.
Okay.
He listened to the beginning of the show, and now he want to make sure Michael, Mike, he got the.
Yeah, I went back and I watched the play where they ended up scoring the TD on it. I was scrolling through that on Twitter. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm like I said to you guys at the beginning of the year, I'm bullish on UCLA in that league. And now they just won at Oregon and at Arizona.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to talk about another game real quick, but let's talk about UCLA just real quick. Okay. It's good to see this rivalry continue to be played. They've got a 3-year series agreement. It's all going to be played on neutral sites, that being UCLA, Arizona. It is so weird that they're playing this early and it's not a Pac-12 game, that they're in different leagues. That's going to take some getting used to. But UCLA, man, I watched the opening half of this game and flipped it over to something else. Arizona came out of the gates pretty good. I thought that they were really solid out the gates, but UCLA just kind of wore them down. If I remember right, UCLA went on, they found themselves down like 8 or 9 points and went on like a 12-0 run to get the lead back and then never gave it up. Really good performance, UCLA, coach. I mean, they've got good guards. I've never been the biggest Sky Clark dude. When he was at Illinois, when he was at Louisville, he had moments. But I always thought if you trust him to be your primary guard to go get you points, that your team's probably not that great. But he's doing really well back home in LA, playing for UCLA. Kobe Johnson coming in from USC has been really good. And they're not flashy. They're not great, but they've got dudes who kind of know their role and play into that role. And when you play for Mick Cronin, another defensive-minded coach, you got to defend, and they're doing that right now. That's a really good win for UCLA.
It goes back to the Buzz Williams conversation. This team that Mick has fits Mick best so far since he's been there. Yep. And they're deeper than they've been. He's got some talented kids, and they got some depth. And look, those are 2 great wins. I mean, I watched the end of the Oregon game. I told you that. I didn't get to watch much of this game yesterday. I just followed the score. And I saw the comeback. I text Mick late last night, just told him, great 2 wins. Those last 2 places to play are not easy, and just what a great week for him.
DeRosa, I mean, if you look at this, their last 3 is Washington, Oregon, Arizona. They're 3-0 in the Pac-12 right now. They're 3-0.
Yeah, Tyler Bilodeau, the Oregon State transfer, has been really good for them. He's their leading scorer on the year. He had 17 in this game. He's not like an outside 3. He's kind of like a high post big man. He can step out and like kind of shoot it, but like he's not a shooter. Best in that high post area. He's been really good for them. Just finds a way to get buckets, and defensively, it's a Mick Cronin team. They're long, they're annoying, they're athletic, and they're one of these teams that plays with a ton of pressure. Aside from Conrad Martinez, who played 5 minutes in this game for Arizona, every other Arizona Wildcat had at least 2 turnovers. The team had 22 turnovers as a whole. That was the difference. UCLA didn't even play particularly well offensively.
No.
421 from 3, 7 of 16 from the free throw line. Found a way to win, and it's their defense. They completely messed with Arizona, got them off their spots, bullied them. Yeah, just took it straight to them.
UCLA is number 4 in effective defense right now. They're number 1 in turnover percentage. 27% of defensive possessions are a turnover in UCLA's favor. That's
Mick
incredible.
might actually smile if he saw it.
I mean, that's an incredible number. If you round it up, basically 30%, 3 out of every 10 possessions is a turnover for UCLA, which is incredible. And they held Arizona to 54. Excuse me. Arizona now falls to 4-5 on the year. They have played a very tough schedule at Wisconsin, home against Duke. They played those 2. They played out in the Bahamas. They lost to Oklahoma, West Virginia, who we know have been pretty good. UCLA is pretty good. So of the 5 losses, none of them are bad, but they're 4-5, and they're about to go into a really tough Big 12 slate. And I mean, you're looking at quite a few more losses. So I ask you guys this as the broad spectrum of things, knowing what we know now with Arizona, as they head into a really tough conference where the first couple games in conference play are on the road, at Cincinnati, at West Virginia. Is Arizona going to make the NCAA tournament?
Well, my first question is, when's the last time they were 4-5?
It's been a while. I'd have to go back and look.
We'd have to dig that. You'd have to dig on that one.
Yeah.
Will they make the NCAA tournament? Boy, that is a tough question. Because that Big 12 is no slouch. Boy. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I can't say for sure they're going to. I can't.
Yeah, DeRosa, I don't think they will. 4-5 puts them in a real hole. I don't think they're that good right now. They only scored. I know UCLA is great defensively, but they only put up 54. They've really struggled to score in some of these games when it matters. They've went on some cold scoring stretches. Caleb Love, to me, he either looks amazing or he looks super passive, and I don't know why. Like, I think they're better off. I know it's crazy. Caleb Love needs to take 20 shots probably and just hope he gets hot, because Toby Awaka's he never was a big scorer at Tennessee, even though I really love his game. He's a trash guy that we described last year, DeRosa, but that's not a negative. That's a good thing. Love's their only real offensive threat, and if he's going to be passive, they can't win games, I don't think.
Yeah, they don't have – Love has to be the offensive alpha, but one thing I mentioned this when you mentioned it with Awaka, they don't have that dominant big man that they've had with every other Tommy Lloyd Arizona team that you can just throw the ball to, get a bucket, and they run some interesting stuff to get their big men post-ups. They don't have that this year. And Jaden Bradley, I think, is taking a step. I think he's been very good. He was definitely their best player in this game, 12 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 5 steals. He was great. But everyone else is just like, Trey Townsend's fine. He's not great. Caleb Love, as you mentioned, he just looks passive at times, and they need him to be great. And aside from that, they don't have like a true, I don't know. Yeah, I can't say I think they're a tournament team at this point. They don't look like one. And the Big 12 is not going to be a cakewalk for them. I'm going to fade them making the tournament.
Hey, Josh.
Go ahead.
Josh, we've gone 49 minutes now and not one word. You're doing a good job of holding it in. When are you going to let it out? I just want to know. We all want to know. Everybody watching wants to know, when's he going to let it out?
Well, hold on. Right here. I'm about to present you the coldest picture that a coach may have ever took that I just found on Twitter before we started this. I present to you Exhibit A. Look at that. Look at that. Look how sweet that is. That is Coach Mark Pope and his wife walking the hallways after a big Kentucky win in the rivalry game yesterday. Got the L's down. I mean, this was fun. This is what the rivalry should be in a high-level basketball game, entertaining. Peyton and I did on our Facebook group, we did a post-game kind of little 15 minutes talking about it last night. And you know what? Kentucky was in control this whole game. Tennessee, listen to me. Louisville went up 3-2. That was the only lead that they had. Kentucky resumed it the next possession and kind of kept Louisville, I would say, anywhere from 4 to 10 points the whole game. Louisville would not go away. We talked about some of their struggles. They were wanting to shoot 35 threes. They shot 39. They made 14. They had not been making threes all year. They did in the rivalry game. But I also mentioned, it would not surprise me, because if you go back to episode 200, Rupp, their rims are shooter friendly. They're very soft. You kind of can get on a roll. Louisville found themselves in a spot. They hit 14 of them and kept themselves in the game. But, man, the point guard battle was elite last night. Chucky Hepburn, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 of 11 from three-point line. He was amazing. Defensively was a pest. Really bothered Jackson Robinson when Lamont was out. And then Lamont Butler was MVP. Did not miss a shot from the floor. 10 of 10, 6 of 6 from 3 for a career-high 33 points. He missed 5 free throws, which is crazy that he goes perfect from the floor and misses those free throws. And keep in mind, gentlemen, this is his first game since the Clemson game. He had not played in the last 2.
How many minutes did he play, Josh?
32 minutes, and he gives up 33 points. That's how you make yourself a legend in Big Blue Nation, where you do it against a bitter rival in a game in Rupp Arena, and you go nuts. We've talked about this so far this year. The biggest surprise in Kentucky's roster is the fact we knew Lamont Butler, elite defender, one of the top 2 or 3 on-ball defenders in college basketball, but his offensive game was iffy at times. He has been so remarkable this year offensively, not only getting other people involved, but you can't leave him now. You can't go under screens because he's busting threes. He's so quick and strong, he gets to the rim. He has been irreplaceable for Kentucky. And I know they won at Gonzaga without him, but I think that's more of an outlier. Lamont Butler makes Kentucky really special this year, and he had a game of his life in one of the bigger games. I know the Final Four trumps all that, but the rivalry game, the pressure and all that, what a performance by Lamont Butler. But also Chucky Hepburn continues to be amazing for Louisville.
So I told you at the beginning of the year, my relationship with Lamont Butler and his family, and how I got to know him when I recruited him at Rice. And I told you, the kid is unbelievable. I texted with him this morning to congratulate him on the game, and hit me right back. We had a good text exchange, and he's somebody hopefully here moving forward we'll get to come visit us on the show. He was excited about possibility of doing that, but that's just an incredible performance. Yeah. I mean, under that, like you've talked about that rivalry. And by the way, the thing Kentucky did from the ex-players was really
oh my God,
cool.
Coach, I got goosebumps when I saw it yesterday.
I'm glad you shared it. I'm glad I watched the whole thing. It was, and I told you I go back many years in that. I mean, I remember Jimmy Masters. I mean, Kyle Macy, Sky Wall. I mean, all those guys, because of my buddy that loved them growing up. But anyway, Lamont just added his name to that list because that performance by the Kentucky fans will never be forgotten. I mean, this to not miss a shot, and crazy.
The archetype of transfer, and I'm going to lead into something I got wrong, then I'm going to finish with something I got right.
Yeah.
The archetype of transfer that just has been has overperformed every time and time again at these schools. And we always forget about it in the offseason because you look at the offseason and you see a guy that averaged 19 points wherever, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Like a Lamont Butler, Otega Oweh, a Chucky Hepburn. Those guys, defensive-minded from high major programs that played roles, they know their role, and they're going to know how to execute it at that next level. And these guys have taken a jump. And full disclosure, I thought Chucky Hepburn was one of the most overrated transfers in the offseason. Wrong. Dead wrong. 100% I was wrong. That said, Josh is hyping up this little picture he sent. I want to read the text I sent to him. I'm not going to read his response and expose him. I want to read the text I sent to him the day Pope got hired. It was a tweet. I linked a tweet, and I said from Jim Root, Second Chance Point, shout out. Mark Pope's BYU finished ahead of John Calipari's KenPom in John Calipari's Kentucky and KenPom 3 times in the last 5 years he was there, which is ridiculous at BYU. I sent that to him, and I said, I don't know if you want to hear this now, but I like this hire. He's not Drew. He's not Hurley, but Pope can coach his ass off. That offense will be beautiful.
Say what I said, because I've admitted I was wrong. Listen, I've admitted I was wrong.
I get what you're saying right now, but I hate this hire right now. I can see a path to success for him because it's hard to fail at Kentucky, but still.
Listen. Hey, I said I fully admit that I'm wrong, and that was in the moment because we missed on Hurley, we missed on Drew, and I was wrong. And immediately, if you remember, I don't know if I text you or we talked about it on one of these shows, that I changed my mind instantly when I seen that press conference, and it kind of got the nostalgia feeling and all that. So I was wrong. Like, listen, I'm not above saying I was wrong. I'm super happy with this hire, and he's killing it right now. Kentucky, though, I don't think it was their best game defensively, but I also think you got to give a lot of credit to Louisville. They did hit shots. They stayed tough. They never went away in this game. We talked about Chucky Hepburn, but man, Terrence Edwards coming off the bench gave him 23. He was really good. It was hard to keep in front of him, especially, and I love Kobe Bryant, but we've talked about this. If Kobe Bryant's guarding you, you put your head down and go to work, because he's not a great defender. Great elite shooter, not a great defender. Every time he got switched on Edwards thought it was barbecue chicken time. And then they got good production from Javon Hadley, Noah Waterman. Peyton's frustrated with him, but he pitched in 12. The thing for Louisville, and then we'll finish this off with Kentucky. The thing for Louisville, and I've been saying this, I came on here and said that after Peyton and I went to Louisville, Tennessee, that if Louisville hits half their threes that they attempted, or even just a couple more, that's not a blowout. They're in that game the whole way. This is a good Louisville team. Injuries have hurt them. Casey Pryor being out has definitely hurt them. They've got a couple other, Babacar Traore, I think is his name. Injuries have really killed them. They only play 7 dudes, and they've missed a bunch of threes that are wide open that they hit yesterday. This team will continue to figure it out. Pat Kelsey has obviously got them going in the right direction. They've got an all-ACC guard in Chucky Hepburn. They've got a stud coming off the bench now in Terrence Edwards. They need Ryan Smith to step up and start making plays. If they can get him to make plays, get at least one of those dudes back, I think Traore is on his way back. This Louisville team, I still believe, can make the NCAA tournament. That is a good team, fellas. And they proved it yesterday, even in a loss. And I told my brother yesterday, I know no moral victories in this rivalry. I get it. But man, you should be proud of that team. They never fought. That could have been easily a 20-point Kentucky victory, and it wasn't, because Louisville played their ass off. They played tough. If they can find consistency, get some guys back, and continue to hit some threes like that, the ACC is weak. They've got a chance. I believe in this Louisville team. I think this is a good team. And if they don't make tournament this year, you feel good that Pat Kelsey's got them on the right path to being back to what Louisville basketball should be. I thought that was a pretty good performance by Louisville yesterday. I want to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, I thought they represented themselves more than well, and losing is never fun, but he definitely has that program kind of, the fan base definitely, I think, is going to start really getting back behind it. The ACC is not super strong. Yeah, it's a shame they lost Pryor. They need to get the other kid back, like you said, but I think they'll win. I think they're going to be another borderline NCAA team too. I think they can win a lot of games in the ACC.
Look, DeRosa, I only see in the ACC, Duke's clear and shoulders head above them. I think Clemson's better than them. But if the way North Carolina is playing, Carolina should be better than them. But Louisville only plays them one time, and they get them coming up at home. That's a winnable game for Louisville right now.
No doubt.
And then you look at the rest of the ACC. If Louisville can find themselves, there's not a reason they can't finish in the upper part of the ACC and put themselves in real contention. I told Peyton, and you tell me what you think about this. The magic number for Louisville is 20. If they can get to 20 wins, they're an NCAA tournament team.
You guys took the point I was going to make with the ACC being weaker. Will they throw Pitt in the mix there? Pitt's been pretty good this year too. I think they're in that top tier. But yeah, I'm with you guys. The 20 wins thing, it would matter who they beat. Like, I don't know how many quality win opportunities they have left. They obviously, let's see, it doesn't look like they have Duke on the schedule. They go Clemson at home, UNC at home. Those are 2 games they probably need.
They played Duke last Sunday. They played Duke. They had them down.
Yes, you're right.
And then Duke rallied to come back and beat them, yeah. But they played them close, too. They played them close.
Yeah. So I think it kind of depends on who they can beat. And if they can get some quality wins, you're probably going to need to win a couple road games, like at a Virginia, at an SMU, at an NC State, at a Notre Dame. Takes a couple of those games. So I don't know if they can with that. That's definitely a later conversation for resume stuff like that. You should probably got to beat teams by a lot, and then your metrics will go up, and then you'll get in that conversation. But I think they can finish towards the top of the ACC, like 100%. probably one of the 6 best teams even right now. And this team's probably going to get better as the guys get more comfortable together.
We give Mark Pope's offense a lot of credit because you may not find a more beautiful run offense in college basketball. But I'll tell you what, Pat Kelsey runs some great offense. Like there was some sets last night or yesterday afternoon that it was the best way I can describe it was like an empty side or like an open side flare screen, and dudes were wide open. Kentucky was having a hard time, especially when Travis Perry or Kobe Brea was trying to defend the flare. They allowed themselves to get screened, and then if they didn't have a flare 3-point shot, they had an open lane to drive to. And I thought it was just beautiful offensive execution. Pat Kelsey's the real deal over at Louisville. Kentucky, we talked about Lamont. They got 5 guys yet again. I think they've played 10 games. This is the 7th game. They've had 5 or more dudes in double figures. Jack Robinson, 12, Andrew Carr, 10, Otega Owe, 17, Kobe Brea, 10. Free throw shooting is my one big concern with Kentucky. 18 of 28, yet again, do not shoot free throws very well. I know they still won. There's going to be games in the SEC and the NCAA tournament that you have to hit your free throws. And the fact that they keep missing and leaving, there was a string there, back-to-back possessions where Lamont missed 2 and Amari Williams missed 2. They missed 4 straight and allowed Louisville to hang around and keep it at 7. And then Louisville comes down, busts a 3 to move it to 4. That's how you get beat in big games. So I hope the free throw shooting comes along. We talked about 3-point shooting. Kentucky, much better yesterday. 11 of 21 for 52.4%. Did not get the 30-plus that they wanted to. But again, the game kind of dictated, hey, you're scoring inside. You don't need to take the threes. But they were efficient from the 3-point line. If Kentucky is going to continue to shoot well from deep like that, man, they're going to be hard to beat.
Really, 11 for 21 is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, really good win. Continues the momentum. Pope moves to what did I say? They're 10-1 on the year now, so everything's still in front of them. Off to a great start, top 5 team. But I'm really, if you're a Louisville fan like my brother, you should feel good. Even at 6-5, you should feel good about your team because I promise you, I still believe that's an NCAA tournament team. We talked about Arizona. Do they make tournament? We all said no. If I ask the same thing with Louisville, guys, I think that they can get in the NCAA tournament. I really, really do. This is a good team. They just need to get healthy.
I would say no. I just don't know if they can beat enough teams. But if I'm a Louisville fan, I still feel optimistic because, I mean, we saw the last 2 years how awful that team was under Kenny Payne. You see the direction, you see the vision when you watch this team play with Coach Kelsey, that you know he's going to get his dudes in and you know they're going to be ready to play even down the line. Like, I think that's kind of all you can really ask for this season. You see the vision, you see how this team's good. You see that even someone like Josh can believe they're a tournament team at this point. And you see the vision of how they can get to that point to where you get Louisville basketball back to being a top 20 team, that you see the vision. And I think that's the most important part.
Yep. I would agree with that. Real quick, rapid fire some of these results, just of note. How about Dayton? That's a great home court advantage. They knock off Marquette, a top 5 team. They knocked them off 71-63. They've beaten Marquette and Connecticut in their 2 of their last 4 games. They're on a 4-game win streak. Their only 2 losses were out in Maui. They lose to North Carolina and lose to Iowa State. No shame in those losses. This is a really good Dayton team yet again. Top 10 offense in the country. They've got a star. And, well, actually, they've got a couple, but Nate Santos, Malachi Smith, Zed Key, the Ohio State transfer. Coach, this is a really good Dayton team, that could make some noise come NCAA tournament time.
Yeah, so another thing that I'm going to talk about this in a second, but it stuck out to me from yesterday in some of these games and some of these losses by some of these really good teams. Like the defense seems to be better. Like Purdue scored 66, right?
Yeah.
What Arizona score? 54? 54. What Illinois scored home?
66.
Marquette scored?
What was that?
63?
63, yeah.
And I think they had 36 in the first half, so I believe that would be 27 in the second.
I just think you're seeing a little different trend here. Lower scoring, maybe a little better defense. I don't know what you attribute to, if it's just all is better defense or the offense is struggling, but with NIL, these kids are all coming back, staying in. I mean, it's not like we've lost all kind of good players. So this has been a very interesting to see some of these low scores in some of these games and some of these wins. But Dayton, now they've had a few really big wins. The A-10 usually they're there, right? every
Yep.
year, every time. And this year's no different.
So I got 2 quick points. One, so much of defense is connectivity, and you, coach, can definitely test this substantially better than I ever could. But so much is connectivity that these guys get used to each other. They know how to play with each other, that it makes sense that defense is getting better. And 2, I want to hit this real quick. Malachi Smith is the most underrated point guard in the country. The way he controls a game is just, he's the most underrated point guard in the country, and we need to talk about him more. Even like he's coming off of an injury. I believe he played 7 minutes last year, and that was it. In the first game, he got hurt. He's the most underrated point guard in the country, and we need to give him his respect.
I would agree with that. A couple other scores I want to touch on real quick. We talked a little bit about Georgia beating a good Grand Canyon team at home. Georgia 73-68. The Bulldogs are 9-1. They're only lost to Marquette. That's going to be a factor in the SEC. I mean, again, you look at look at the schedule in the SEC. They've got 3 more winnable games, right, that they should put them to 12-1 before conference play. At Mississippi, home against Kentucky, home against Oklahoma, at Tennessee, home against Auburn, away to Arkansas, away to Florida, home against South Carolina. That ends January before they flip it over to February.
You could lose 6 in a row.
You could. I mean, it's brutal, but Georgia isn't, I think
and they're
Georgia,
good.
I think Georgia should be a tournament team. I really do. Asa Newell's been phenomenal. Our guy Silas Demery has taken that sophomore step up from his freshman year. I like this Georgia team a whole lot. I think that they're going to be a factor in the SEC. Not win it, but they're going to be upper middle, I believe, in the SEC. Kansas bounces back after a couple losses, beats North Carolina State at home yesterday. DeRosa, anything on Kansas finally getting a win again yesterday?
I didn't watch any of this game. I can't give a take on it, but Kansas is still good.
Yeah. All I want to say is, like I told you guys, everybody calm down. Bill Self at home, NC State they weren't even in the game.
Yeah.
They came off 2 in a row. Yeah, I mean, that made it even more. I love the Kansas even more after, a little adversity hit the Jayhawks.
McNeese, they've not been off to the start. I think a lot of us thought they're 5-5. They played a pretty tough schedule, but that's still a really good mid-major at heart. And I think Will Wade will get this going in conference play, but they played Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. It says semi away, but it was basically a home game for Mississippi State yesterday. They tucked the Bulldogs down to a 3-point game. Mississippi State wins 66-63. Again, another SEC team that's not getting a whole lot of love, but man, I love Josh Hubbard on this team. He's Dre Davis, not Dre Davis. He's with Ole Miss, but this is a really good Mississippi State team, another quality team.
I watched the end of that game real quick. I watched the end of that game. First of all, Hubbard's awesome. He's so quick and such a good creator, but they got to the free throw line. They missed a free throw. RJ Melendez gets the offensive rebound off the free throw, and that was what enabled them to win the game. They make the little plays too.
More mid-major madness in a big-time game yesterday. Boise State 67, St. Mary's 65 in OT. This is another really good team from Leon Rice, coach. Boise State's going to be another one of those teams that could get a game or two in the NCAA tournament. They were led by Tyson Degenhart, who's one of the better mid-major players in the country. He had 19 points in this game. St. Mary's drops to 9-2 on the year, but 2 very good mid-majors going to battle in overtime yesterday, and Boise State gets the win.
It's just a great game. I mean, but Boise, Leon's done such a phenomenal job there too. Those 2 guys, Randy and Leon, now for years and years and years have just had those places in contention, winning 20+, difficult opponent no matter who they play. For those 2 to play each other and have that kind of game, not surprising. And not surprising, it was close, and good for Boise to get the win.
DeRosa, rounding out the reviews here, I want to give you a minute to gloat about your Hoyas. You talked about it briefly, but hey, this moves them to 8-2. Jaden Epps, 27 points. I watched, like I said, the second half of this game. Thomas Sorber, he had a couple possessions in a row where he was making plays, 16 points, 7 rebounds in this game. Big rivalry win up at the JMA Wireless Carrier Dome. I think it was Georgetown's first win there.
Since 2016.
Since 2016. Micah Peavy played all 40 minutes. Malik Mack played 39. They got big-time production. Hey, the Hoyas, buddy, 8-2. They start conference play coming up on this upcoming week.
They're building momentum. It's not a tournament team. Like, I'm of no illusion to that. Let's get that out of the way. But they're building momentum. And one thing with this Georgetown team, it's the youngest high major team in the country. I'm just going to go off the dome because I'm like, awesome. Georgetown's got a couple upperclassmen. We'll go through all of Georgetown's upperclassmen here, right? Micah Peavy, grad transfer, TCU. Jaden Epps, Jr. That's it. They have 2 upperclassmen on this team. This team is really young. They're going to grow as the season goes on. Sorber's a stud. He didn't play his best game in this one. He missed a couple threes, but he's a stud. This team, they're getting more comfortable, and Cooley went zone in this game. That changed everything. But this is the best game they've gotten out of Malik Mack. He was excellent. He settled into his role. 8 assists, 0 turnovers in a rivalry game. He was excellent. He just found a way to make plays. His jump shot wasn't falling as it has been all season, but he found a way to make plays. He was really settled into his role. If Georgetown gets Malik Mack going, especially we're talking next year, this team's going to be really, really good.
The Hoyas, their upcoming slate, home against Creighton, away to Seton Hall. They do have another non-con December 28th at home against Coppin State, home against Xavier, away to Marquette, home to home to Connecticut, away to St. John's. That 4-game slate from January 3rd to January 14th, where they play Xavier, Marquette, Connecticut, and St. John's, will tell a lot about this Georgetown team. They'll not be favored in any of the 4, but if they can knock off at least one of those games, then you come out of that and you play DePaul, Villanova, Providence, 3 games that they could easily win. Then they're putting themselves in a spot to make some postseason play this year, DeRosa. And then you talked about the D1 experience. They're 176 in the nation. They average 1.77 years in Division I experience. So very young team, but that 4-game stretch and then the 3 following, might as well say a 7-game stretch, that could tell the story for Georgetown if they were to make some type of postseason this season.
I mean, if Georgetown makes the NIT and they're able to retain a lot of this roster, that is
a building block.
Huge win in this season. Then you can build to next season where they're going to make a push.
Yep.
Go get some NIL money, Michael.
Yeah.
Hey, so here's Josh, real quick. 2 things I want to point out and 2 more SEC teams. I want to give Alabama credit. Right? Remember that stretch we talked about?
Yeah, that brutal stretch.
They went 5-2 in that deal.
It's insane.
It is. And I also want to give Florida say, blew out Arizona State. A pretty good Arizona State team. And I think Florida is really good. Those 3 kids they have, Clayton, Richard, and the kid Elijah. I mean, man, they got dudes.
Well, the thing about Florida is we talked about, we knew that they were good, but they hadn't really been challenged. They got challenged yesterday, and they put boots to Arizona State. We're going to talk more about Florida here in just a minute. They got a game this week that'll test them even more. But look at their conference slate to open up, Coach. Away to Kentucky on opening night SEC play, January 4th. You come back, play Tennessee at home, away to Arkansas, home to Missouri, home to Texas, away to South Carolina, home to Georgia, and then February 1st, you play Tennessee. I say all this to say they've got 3 very difficult games to open up conference slate, and then Missouri looks better, but they get them at home, same with Texas, and then you play at South Carolina. If Florida, let's say they can win 2 of the 3 against Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, and open up conference play 2-1, I would bet that they beat Texas, Missouri, Texas, South Carolina, and even Georgia potentially. That looks like a team that could win the SEC. This team is loaded with guard play. They shoot a lot of threes. They're underrated defensively. They're 21st in KenPom. Man, Todd Golden's got a ball club down there in Gainesville right now. That's a really good team.
Yep. I have a good friend of mine, Carlin Hartman, is one of their top assistants there. And he and I texted a little bit after the game yesterday, and he really, really likes this group, and they're good.
Well, they should, because they are loaded at guard play. What I want to do now, before we start previewing some of the games coming up and start to wrap up the show here, is we got to talk about our good friends and sponsors over at Dubby Energy. Dubby is a clean energy drink that is made to give you focus with no crash, jitters, or angst like other energy drinks. They have no maltodextrin fillers and don't use artificial dyes. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams caffeine. Their product is made in the USA in an FDA-inspected facility that strictly adheres to GMP manufacturing guidelines. And if you go to www.dubby.gg, place an order, go get yourself some stuff, and use the promo code ECB10 at checkout, you will get 10% off of your purchase. I'm going to pull the camera back up because, as you can see right here, I have got my push and punch right here. Put the little packet in here just with some water, shake it around. It is good. Every flavor that I've tried from them so far has been phenomenal. Make sure you get it shaken up real well, of course, and one of the nice little tumbler shakers that they give you. And it's smooth. It really does give you no crash. It does, like, I've not felt jittery like I would if I drank a Monster or something too fast. This is really good stuff, man, and it's healthy for you. Gives you a little energy boost, which I need right now being sick. So go visit our sponsors over at W Energy. Place an order, put the promo code ECB10, and you'll get 10% off of your purchase. Really good stuff. Happy to have them on board this year. I think it's time to there's not a lot of games in the early part of the week that stand out, but there are a couple, and let's go back to Florida. Tuesday night, they do play North Carolina up in Charlotte, so you might as well say it's a road game for the Gators. They're playing a North Carolina team that we've known that's had some struggles this year, Michael. Elite guard play against elite guard play. What do you see when you look at this matchup on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean the guards of Florida are just terrific, and we haven't seen Florida like pushed around a little bit in the two games where they've like been in the spot to where you could see something. They beat the absolute doors off of Wichita State, and then as we just mentioned, the Arizona State game. That this Florida team is really, really good. And it's in North Carolina. It's in Charlotte, so neutral site type game. I got to stick with Florida. North Carolina just hasn't been too impressive this year, and I don't know if they're going to be able to stop the Florida guards. RJ Davis is definitely going to get his, so is Elliot Cadeau, but I think this Florida team is just kind of a well-oiled machine. And if Florida, I think they're a team that they're just an excellent hammer. If they are better than you, they're going to show they are better than you, and they're going to put belt to ass.
Yeah. Coach, this should be a high-tempo game. North Carolina is 6th in tempo. Florida is 100th, but if you watch the games, like they play, and then you look at their average possession length, they're 25th in the nation. Like they're getting a shot up or finishing a possession in 15.5 seconds. This is going to be a fast-played game between an elite set of guards on both sides. I know Trevor, our guy who couldn't make it today, thinks it'll come down to the front court. It may very well, but I still think it's going to be whichever guards make more shots and make more plays is going to win this game, because ultimately games are won and decided between the lines with the guards. And I love Florida's. All three can score. Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, Will Richard have been phenomenal this year. RJ Davis has been prone, kind of like Caleb Love in a way, kind of been up and down, a little bit more passive than maybe he needs to be. I don't know if I fully trust Elliot Cadeau yet and some of the other Carolina players. I think Florida goes into North Carolina in Charlotte, and I think they put a rout on North Carolina. I really do. I think this could be like a game where Florida wins like 91-77.
Normally in these situations, you guys have gotten to know me a little bit, and the people watching and listening have as well. I would say, Carolina's got their back to the wall. This is one they got to win. They've struggled a little bit. Everybody's kind of hammering a little bit, but I just don't have the confidence in this team right now to say that they're going to beat Florida. I had a ton of confidence in Kansas the other day against NC State. I had a ton of confidence in Danny righting his ship with UConn coming back from Maui. I don't know right now. So I got to pick Florida also, and that's against what I normally would do in these situations. But I'm going to go with the Gators. I just think they're the better team, and by more than a little.
You want to know where this game could very well be won at, and it does kind of go to Trevor's point that he texted us last night. Florida, for all their offense and shooting and all that, they are 10th in offensive rebound percentage, getting 40% of their missed shots converted to an offensive rebound. Conversely, North Carolina is 226. They're not crashing offensive glass. They're not getting them.
They haven't been very good. They just haven't been great. They just haven't.
They have not.
The best lineup is, I think, with Van Allen Lubin at the 5, and he's 6'8". He's a 4.
Well, you talk about front court matchups, man. Thomas Huff for Florida has been pretty good this year. He's 6'9", but the way he plays and distributes the ball and kind of knows his role, he's a big part of that 40% offensive rebound percentage. And if you allow a team like Florida to miss a shot and get a second, third, fourth opportunity, they're eventually going to score. So I don't trust Carolina to clean up the glass. They're not getting offensive rebounds. I think Carolina's only path to victory, and I'm being honest, is if RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, Ian Jackson off the bench, or if he starts. And then a guy like Cade Tyson finally stepping up. I know he had a pretty good game against LaSalle yesterday, but they're going to have to win the three-point battle and limit turnovers. The one thing Carolina does well right now is they don't turn the ball over. They're 27th in turnover percentage on offense. They don't turn it over. So neither does Florida, though. They're 35th. So I think turnovers and threes, if Carolina can win those, then they got a chance to win it. But I think Florida is the better team, and they're going to win this game. So, I was queuing you guys up. Maybe say something, follow up on that.
Well, I don't know. We all agree. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
Like I said, I didn't want to. I was trying to find a way to. It's Carolina. I don't know yet. I don't know. I think Florida gets them. I just think Florida, and I also think Florida happens to be like Elite Eight good. So
Yeah.
that's the other issue.
Well, I think they are too. I think they're second weekend for sure good. Let's go to the other game that'll be played. For some reason, it says this is played on Wednesday night. I always thought these were on the same night, unless ESPN's wrong. It says Wednesday, but it's part of that Jordan. Is it not the Jordan Brand Classic, whatever that's called, where they get the main Jordan Brand teams playing? They did it last year. Michigan, you got number. Let me see here. Number 16 Oklahoma playing number 17 Michigan. That says that's in Charlotte as well. Part of the Jordan Brand thing there. Michigan had a weird game against Arkansas where they're up, then they're down, and they come back, and they still lose in the Jimmy V Classic. Now they play Oklahoma, another SEC school that is undefeated, coming off of a big Bedlam win yesterday against Oklahoma State. They're bitter rivals by 15. They've been the surprise of the SEC so far. Nobody thought that they'd be this good, DeRosa. So when you look at this matchup, can Michigan bounce back? They need Dusty Wolf to play incredible. Oklahoma's got a really good defense. The freshman Jeremiah Fears has been playing out of his mind. The Dayton transfer Kobe Elvis has been playing really good for him. I think this is kind of a matchup of two very similar teams, if I'm being honest.
Jalen Moore, too, has been excellent for Oklahoma, but you mentioned with the 4-5 pick and roll that Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden are able to run. I don't know how much size Oklahoma has. I don't know how Oklahoma's going to defend that. So I lean Michigan in this spot. Like Sam Godwin is it fine big, but like I think the way you beat Oklahoma is inside. You take them with the bigs, and I think you can kind of bully him around there. And I think Danny Wolf will just find a way. I think he's just so much bigger than whoever they're going to be able to put on him, unless they try to go two bigs. And if Oklahoma has to adjust to Michigan rather than Michigan having to adjust to Oklahoma, I think that is a huge advantage. I think this is a bad matchup for Oklahoma. I'm fairly confident in this. I got Michigan by, I want to say like double digits.
Well, Ken Palm's got Michigan by 3, Coach.
I think Michael makes good points, and I think that Dusty is going to continue to find ways to put this Wolf kid in all kind of successful positions, and as he gets to keep coaching him more, because the kid's so versatile. And I know that Jordan Brand's happy that Oklahoma's been as good as they are, because this matchup is really cool. I mean, this is it's a really good game, and both coaches are tremendous. And Dusty's a really good friend of mine, and for him to get off the start he's gotten off to, Michigan's been cool. But I do agree. I think they're Michigan's going to cause them problems with those two guys and Wolf in particular. And I think Michigan will win as well. Maybe a little closer than what Michael thinks, but I think they get the win.
I'll give you a couple stats, and I'll sound like a broken record here. You look at 3-point percentage. Both teams pretty even. Oklahoma 36.4%, Michigan 35.9%. So you might as well call that a wash. 3-point defense. Michigan's defense, 65th in the nation. Teams are only shooting 30.1%. Oklahoma's 25th in the nation. Their teams are only shooting 28.6%. Pretty much a wash from the 3-point line and 3-point defense. Here's the thing that stands out. Michigan has had a turnover problem. It was evident against Arkansas. They were throwing the ball all over the place during Arkansas's run. They are 335th in turnover percentage on offense. They're turning the ball over 21.4% of possessions. Oklahoma's defense is 20th in the country, forcing 22.4% turnover percentage on defensive possessions. If Michigan folds to the pressure and throws the ball all over the court again, they have no shot of beating Oklahoma. They have to take care of the basketball. They cannot have a repeat of what happened in the second half to Arkansas, where they were throwing it all over the court. Oklahoma is going to try to ratchet the defense up and force them into terrible situations. With that being said, I'm with you guys. I think Michigan wins this game. But if they have another 14, 15, 16 or more turnover night, Oklahoma covers them by 10 or more. They have to value possessions against a team like Oklahoma, or they can't win this game. So it's something to keep an eye on. The other game I want to talk about, DeRosa, in your neck of the woods here, as far as conference affiliation goes, you got Xavier playing on the road to Connecticut, a Connecticut team that, we just mentioned earlier that's starting to figure it out. Xavier loses the crosstown shootout to Cincinnati yesterday by 3. Now they go on the road to play Connecticut to open up Big East play, DeRosa. Xavier has not been impressive this year. Even with an 8-3 record, their big games they've lost. Their best win so far is I guess it'd be South Carolina because Wake Forest has struggled. That's not an impressive resume. Now they got to go on the road. And, man, you look at Xavier's schedule to open up Big East play. At Connecticut, home against Marquette, home against Seton Hall, away at Georgetown, home against St. John's. They play the 3 best teams in the Big East in the first 5. This is a tall ask for Sean Miller's team.
Yeah, I know Coach is friends with Sean Miller, so I don't want to be too harsh on the Xavier team, but their half-court offense still hasn't clicked. Xavier's really only offense is in transition, and they are great in transition. They space the floor really well. They've got athletes, and they have a true point guard in Davion McKnight, and Ryan Conwell's able to hit shots. And I thought the crosstown shootout was the best game they've played all season. It's a rivalry game. I think Sean kind of has Wes Miller's number a little bit. Wes Miller's team was able to win, but I thought Xavier was more competitive than the numbers would have indicated they would be this year. And they got Zach Fremantle going early in that game, which was a huge note. But yeah, UConn is a team that plays in the half court and they make you pay for bad defensive mistakes. 2 things that Xavier struggles with: playing the half court, and they make a ton of defensive mistakes. This team is still not connected yet. It feels like a chemistry thing just watching them. I can't speak to it factually. That's just pure speculation. Very likely wrong, but that's just what it kind of feels like. They're not connected in the half court. And part of that, I think, is Sean Miller ran off. I mean, he brought in 10 guys. It's hard to grow with a team like that. And the Xavier team got so much hype, but it's there are 10 guys coming in. It is hard to grow with that. And we don't know how they're going to be. A lot of mid-major transfers coming up. We don't know how those guys are going to play at this level. And some of those guys haven't answered the call. Ryan Conwell has answered the call, but UConn's going to make them pay for mistakes. Xavier doesn't play well in the half court. UConn's going to slow this game down. They're going to control the tempo. UConn's just going to stop them from getting going, and UConn is going to make their Xavier's half-court offense struggle because Xavier's half-court offense just isn't good. I think UConn routes them.
Coach, here's a couple ways Xavier could win this game on the road. They are really good defensive rebounding team. Teams against them right now are only getting 23.4% or 23% basically offensive rebounding possessions on their opposing offensive. I'm trying to make that make sense, but I'm sick. So basically they're doing a really good job of keeping opposing teams off the offensive glass. They're finishing with a defensive rebound. They're 11th in that category. So keep UConn, when they miss shots, keep them off the glass. And they're 17th in 3-point percentage. They're shooting right now 39.4%. To me, if they can continue to do those things at a high level, limit UConn to 1 shot only, and they come down and they're probably going to have to make 10 or 11 threes in this game to have a chance. But there's 2 things that they do at a really high level right now, and I think they got to do it at a really high level against Connecticut if they want to get a win up there.
What night's the game?
It's Wednesday nights.
Yeah, look, it's a tough ask. I mean, not only is it hard to beat UConn anywhere, but now you got to beat them at UConn if it's won 3 games in a row. So yeah, it's going to be you're going to play a really good game. You're going to have to do the things that you said at an elite level, and it's still going to be a tough task. I mean, if I have to pick the game, I'm picking UConn to win the game. I mean, I just think at home they're going to be tough to beat. But they're going to be tough to beat no matter who goes into UConn.
Yeah. I'm going UConn. I didn't give a prediction. I'm going UConn as well, but I think Xavier will keep it closer than what people think. It always happens, it seems like last few years, that Connecticut gets off to a little slower start in the Big East than maybe they expect, and then they figure it out. I think Xavier will keep this close. I really do, but I think UConn wins the game. Let's wrap it up here with some bank limits and some shout-outs. I guess I'll go ahead and start here. From all the games that we talked about and kind of other ones through the early part of the week, I'm going to go the easiest bank one I can think of. We talked about it. I think Florida absolutely dog walks North Carolina. I've got Florida by 20 plus against North Carolina on Tuesday night. Bank on it.
I'm going to go with a bank on it that Danny Wolf is going to get a triple-double.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
In a Michigan win over Oklahoma.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm looking through the slate. Nothing leaps out to me. I mentioned how
Just say
confident I
something
am.
outrageous. Who cares? Maybe you'll get it right.
Mentioned how confident I am. I'm going to go completely off the wall. We're going to the mid-major level, like even low major level. Howard Tuesday at home has Drexel coming to town. Howard's going to win that game by 7+. Bank on it. Howard. Howard as a freshman, by the way, sort of tying into shout outs. Blake Harper is his name. Last game, granted, they played Virginia Lynchburg, so that's a D2, D3 team. I'm not too sure. He had a 30-point triple-double. Blake Harper is a name to watch. He has been excellent for Howard this year. He's a lefty, smooth game, really smooth. He's not going to wow you with athleticism, but he's just smooth. He knows how to play. Blake
I'm sure
Harper,
the whole Big
freshman
East
at
and
Howard.
ACC is watching.
Yeah, Blake Howard, name to watch.
I love it. All right, let's finish out with some shout outs here. And I'll do mine first. We love to talk about the women's game if possible. And the Tennessee Volunteer women set a record, Division I record yesterday in a blowout. I forget who they beat, but they won like 101-61. They hit 30 3-point shots, set a Division I record. I want to repeat that. 30 3-point made field goals. That is absolutely NBA-like, absolutely insane. What a performance. I know they didn't play anybody of great quality, but you still got to hit shots, and to hit 30 of them, man, that's nuts. Set a Division I record. So shout out to the Lady Vols on that. Lamont Butler, I couldn't go out without saying it. 33 points, 10 of 10 from the floor, 6 of 6 from the 3-point line, and was an absolute star in the Bluegrass Showdown yesterday against Louisville. Put his name in the history books for that one. Congratulations to Lamont. And then my other one, Andre Stojakovic from California, 31 points, 4 of 6 from the 3-point line, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks in a California win yesterday. I loved watching his dad play. He didn't really get off to the greatest start last year for Stanford, but he's starting to show his form for Cal this year. So shout out to Andre Stojakovic. I loved watching Pages shoot. So it's cool to follow Andre.
I'm going to give a shout out to one of my ex-players who transferred to Washington, Makai Mason. Started off slow, and then the last 2 games went for 15 and for 23. And if Danny Sprinkle's team is going to make some noise, Makai's going to need to continue to play at that level. So hopefully that'll really boost his confidence and get him going. Michael, it's all yours.
Yeah, I got a couple. I mentioned Blake Harper. He is a dude to watch at Howard. Going to stick around to that mid-major level. Let's start with Belmont. They went to Richmond and won. Granted, Richmond's not the same team they've been in past years, but Jonathan Pierre, D2 transfer, then played last year at Memphis, didn't really get going. He's really gotten going for this Belmont team. He brings some athleticism that they really need if they want to compete with the Bradleys, who before yesterday was shooting 46% from 3 on the season, which is ridiculous. I think they had an off game yesterday, was due to happen. And Drake, who was awesome in the Charleston Classic. But Belmont's another team atop that league. They're really good. Jonathan Pierre had 28 points, 7 boards, 9 assists. He's a point forward for this team. He's really interesting. Shout out to Jonathan Pierre and Belmont. Sticking mid-major level, VCU went at Colorado State and won. This is a very good VCU team. This VCU team's going to make noise in March. I still have no idea how they lost to Seton Hall. They're just so much better than Seton Hall. Seton Hall's able to muck that game up. Good for them. But Joe Bemasile went for 25. Max Schulgel went for 20 and 10. 25 and 9, I should say, for Bemasile. They're 2 guards. Rebound well. They do everything. Those guys are great. Shout out to them. And I hate to do this to the IU contingent, and this is not a mid-major game, but Bryce Williams put up 30. And I think because it happened on Friday, not Saturday, not enough people are going to talk about it. He was excellent. And Nebraska, he's keeping them afloat. I don't know if Nebraska's a tournament team, but they're afloat despite the injury to Rink Moss preseason. Bryce Williams, awesome. Shout out.
Yeah, Nebraska continues to be a house of horrors for the state of Indiana teams. Indiana, Purdue just seemingly go down there and lose all the time. So really fun show today. I tried to have my this for multiple shows in a row now where I've tried to deal with this illness. So hopefully I sounded all right. But we appreciate the hell out of you guys. Go check out our sponsors at W Energy. Seriously, it's really good stuff. As you can see, I'm enjoying it. Go get an order, place it, and put ECB10 at checkout. Get 10% off that purchase. Also, shout out to our friends and sponsors over at Beauty Beast Nutrition, located downtown Edinburgh, Indiana. Healthy Juice Bar. Stop in. They're great owners. Tell them that ECB sent you. You get 10% off your purchase there for your healthy protein shakes. And wrapping up episode 201, we appreciate the hell of the support from episode 200. That was a big deal. But now we're marching forward to episode 300, and the season rolls on. We are getting this much closer to the turn of a new year and the official conference play beginning all throughout It's going to be a lot of fun the next couple months, and we can't wait to talk all about it. We will catch you on episode 2 on Thursday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we will catch you guys down the road. Peace.